Hello, everyone. Thank you for dropping in. As promised last week, today I'm going to be reviewing your favourite, and of course my favourite television programme of all time, and that just so happens to be The Summer I Turned Pretty. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. What the hell was that, my labs? I think for a moment there we shifted into a parallel universe, a fucking demented and terrible universe. But we're back where we should be, and we are looking today at Time, Snake and Superclown by Vincent King. A wonderful novel indeed, the last one that he wrote back in 1976. Now, back in 2008, this was reviewed by Gizmondo, and they called it the most demented novel of all time. Will it live up to that statement? We will have to see. Now, Vincent King only published 4 novels in his lifetime, and I've read all 4 of them now. So it's the only author I've ever read the entirety of their published works, novels that is. So the first one that came along was Light a Last Candle, and that was about supposedly an alien invasion of Earth, somewhere down the line from an invasion where they had taken over Earth, supposedly. Then came Candyman, which was quite a wonderful book about a curious chap in a post-apocalyptic setting on Earth in the latter stages of humanity. Really, really good. And then came Another End, about the explorations of one of the last remaining Earthlings, searching the galaxy for life and not really finding it. Quite a bleak novel, that one, and it got a little bit bonkers, but nothing quite like Time, Snake and Superclown, which really does go there. Gives old Philip K. Dick a run for his money, I've got to say that much in terms of the bonkers quotient, but we'll get to all of that in a moment. So I think it's probably to do with that article back in 2008 that elevated the status of this book. I mean, the title alone really conjures curious thoughts in one's mind before you even start reading The Devil. But the value of this book in the second-hand market has skyrocketed, my lads. I'm not sure what it's like over in America. At the time that review was written, it was readily available for 50 cents, so it was pretty much worthless. But over here, it's quite hard to get a copy. Luckily, I have a dear friend by the name of Robin from Bookspin, and he just sent me the book down in the post. And what a complete gentleman he was. He got it for £5, which was an absolute steal, because I don't think you can get it cheaper than about 30 quid on eBay. So I wasn't going to push the boat out that far. But the rest of his works, so Light a Last Candle, Another End, and Candyman, they are all relatively cheap. I would say the earlier books are more understandable, more sane, let's put it that way, other than Another End, which starts the trip down the bonkers route. So these first novels were from, I think, 69 to around 72, something like that. But Time, Snake and Superclown didn't come until 76, and then for whatever reason he didn't publish any other works. Unfortunately, I think he passed away back in, I think it was the year 2000, so he didn't do much more, although he did do a number of short stories, but I don't know anything about them. But the first thing I would say about this book is that as I started it, I loved the way this book begins, by the way. So we follow a chap, a nameless chap, and he appears to have just had sexual congress with a young woman who's still sleeping in the bed. And he's walking around the apartment as though he doesn't understand it, perhaps. He's looking at it through eyes that aren't entirely human, potentially. So it starts off really wonderfully, and I thought, well, this is going to be okay. I got about a quarter of the way through, and I thought, yeah, this is slightly odd, but it's, having read Vincent King's previous books, I thought, this is fine. We are on stable ground here. The person that wrote that review doesn't know what they're talking about. What the fuck? And then we got a bit further in and I realised that Vincent went all in, my loves. It goes completely bonkers. So bonkers, in fact, that it's quite hard to understand what's happening half the time, which definitely crept in with Another End. You don't fully know. It's hallucinatory, I would call it. It's like being on an acid trip, perhaps. I've never taken acid, but I imagine it's rather like reading Time, Snake and Superclown. Apologies, there's a fucking lorry outside, as per fucking usual. Okay, apologies. I'm going to have to carry on because I think that's there to stay for a while. It's a refrigerated lorry transporting ice cream. Anyway, right. So, Times, Snake and Superclown. I'm going to try to do a synopsis of sorts, but it's going to be very, very difficult, almost impossible, in fact. So, the unnamed man at the very beginning is referred to as the Watcher. So, the Watcher is a man. It's definitely a man who is looking out for humanity within the zone. Now, Earth, and I think the whole solar system, has been protected within a bubble called the zone. And the Watcher is there to protect Earth and humanity in general from a known alien entity that's always over the eons has been trying to penetrate the zone and potentially wipe out humanity. So the Watcher's there guarding us via the zone. However, within the zone, now this is my interpretation of it. It's very hard to get a hard take on this. So the person that reviewed the book back in 2008 on Gizmondo had a slightly different take to mine, but I imagine this as the zone encapsulates not only the solar system as it is, but as it's always been. So the entire history of humanity and Earth in general. So it's an incredible feat of future technology whereby all possible histories of humanity have been preserved. So it's a kind of a many worlds, multiple universes contained within that bubble, if you will. And so the Watcher is able to flit backwards and forwards in time and potentially different versions of history as well, all different types, all different varieties of things that could have transpired on Earth. He refers to the humans that he encounters as reefs, so almost like ghost entities. And I suppose he's doing that because, in effect, all of humanity is already dead, in a way, in some form or another. It's run its course up to a certain point where the zone was put into place. So he spends his time guarding over the zone, but it seems more often than not dallying amongst these reefs, these kind of ghost-like impressions of humanity as they lived in these different versions of reality, if you will. Hence my little ditty at the beginning there, referencing a different reality. But he seems repulsed by humanity at the same time. He's very much distanced from it. Initially, we assume that this is because he's from the far future and his relationship to humanity as it existed far back in the past is greatly removed, shall we say. So I think where we encounter him at the very beginning, it's a large city. I imagined New York, and he's been dallying with this young human woman who he actually feels repulsed by, despite the fact that he's apparently shagged her. But he comes to appreciate her later on. Let's put it that way. He falls in love with her. Now, no great spoilers here. I don't know if it's possible to spoil this book, but because you kind of end it not entirely knowing what's happened. Now, at the same time, there's definitely references. There's references to his previous works. You can see each of the previous books within this. This is his great, I suppose, masterwork, if you will. based on everything he's been working through with those previous 3 novels, the central character is very similar, for example, to the one that appears in Candyman, and to a lesser extent the explorer in Another End, and the kind of the renegade soldier from Light a Last Candle. He's always removed and distanced from the humans that are around him. Isolated and potentially fairly depressed, I would say. But he wears this suit. So this suit, it coincidentally makes him resemble like a harlequin, if you will. And so there's a painting that's referenced in this book quite a lot. It's a Dutch painting. I haven't looked it up, but it appears to be of a Venetian setting with Venetian masks and the harlequin design, the diamond design. So that's what his suit kind of looks like at times. This suit is really powerful, very interesting. It allows him to remove himself from this from Earth and then go back to his spaceship that's residing in this null space of the zone. So already there is a resemblance to a clown, if you will. Now, through his interactions with this woman who pops up various points, we realize that the woman and her partner, there's another chap in the mix, they are mysterious entities in themselves. They are human, but they're playing lots of tricks on this poor chap, and gradually altering his appearance to resemble a clown. So this is where the super clown aspect comes in. Now, at the same time, sorry, are you still with me? At the same time, this suit allows him to strobe out. So I took this as meaning he's able to not only move forwards and backwards in time, but also different versions of reality as well. I really love this idea. In fact, there's also glimpses of an apocalyptic event, perhaps a nuclear war. And I just love that idea of him strobing from realities into other versions where calamities are unfolding, whether or not it's due to the influence of this alien that's continuously apparently knocking on the door of the zone. We don't fully know, or if we do, if I do, I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, some wonderful ideas in here. Now, the drawback, of course, is that, and this was a problem with Another End. When I reviewed that, I said a similar thing, in that to a certain extent, you're with it, you're riding along with the story, you understand it, and then it goes so far into bonkers territory that you don't really know what's going on. Now, this happens with Time Snake to the point where there's great big swathes of loads of pages dedicated to these altered states or just events that are transpiring that don't seem to make any sense at all. Now, I think it does demand another reading. I think I will read it again. I'll probably get something more out of it. But I think the associations that Mr. Time Snake has, Mr. Superclown has with this woman in particular is important to him for the ending. You find out something that's really interesting about the Watcher himself. That's as much as I will say about the story, I suppose. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but I also found it tedious at times because you start losing interest when things don't make sense for a long period of time. I suppose this is similar in some ways to some of the Dick novels where you feel continuously lost. But there is an underlying sense to it all, even if you don't really understand it. Time Snake, it goes there, and then it goes even deeper into the fabric of Bonkers Land. Is it the most demented novel of all time? I don't think so, but I think it's probably one of the most incomprehensible novels of all time. I would say that much. But it's done very well. The writing is wonderful. I suppose this would come under the umbrella of a more literary science fiction. There's something very deep being expressed here, or attempting to be expressed. I don't think the author was under the influence when he wrote this, although again, referencing that other review, there was suggestions that perhaps they were on powerful pain medication or something. I don't think it's that. It's just a wonderful imagination. It's just that occasionally he becomes untethered and just goes too far down the rabbit hole. But in so doing, he does it wonderfully. His writing is wonderful. Very if you just read the first few pages of it, you'll get a taste of how good King was at writing. I would say it really grabbed me at the beginning, and that strobe idea really held me. So sorry, this is not a brilliant review, I know. I'm put off by that fucking lorry outside, but anyway, let's get the book down and give it a damn good thrashing. So right out of 5, I've got to give this, I would say 4 out of 5. Now I think upon rereading it, I would get, it would probably go up to a 5. But I hesitate to do that just because I was so bewildered and at times frustrated by it, I've got to say. But there were moments there, especially when this idea of strobing. I just love the word strobing, as though he's splitting into lots of dimensions. He split himself. He's splitting in that moment into various dimensions, in becoming immaterial himself, and then finding himself in this place, and there's a war going on, there's devastation, for example. I just loved that idea, and it got to a point about a third of the way through, and I thought, this is going to be amazing, and it left me behind slightly. By the end, it came full circle, and I understood enough to appreciate it. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I think it would demand a rereading. But has anyone else read any Stephen King, Vincent King? I think he is, I'd say, underappreciated and bordering on obscure these days. But I discovered him through Candyman, and then just thought, well, there's only 4 books that he did, so let's just get them all. And I really, one thing I did learn about reading everything written by one author is that you get a really good understanding not only of the quality of their writing and the way they formulate their stories, but the things that make them tick, the passion they have for their version of science fiction. It turns out that his, of course, is pretty grim, really, dystopian, apocalyptic, but also interesting in that it's exploring humanity in a very interesting way. Anyway, let's leave it there before I go fully up my own arse. Anyway, cheers for watching, my labs, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio!
My family spends every summer in Cousins Beach with my mom's best friend and her 2 sons, Conrad and Jeremiah. They've always seen me as a little kid, but this summer,
see you guys later.
It's different.
Damn, you look hot.
I know, I'm not the target audience for this kind of bilge, but I'm going to say something about it now. So about 3 years ago, this fucking trailer used to play all the fucking time on Prime. Couldn't skip the devil, and was forced to watch it over and over again. Fucking sickening. It was all I could do to stop myself puking blood into my wife's face. She didn't like it either, incidentally. But just deplorable shite. First world problems. I think that's what that's all about. Yeah, poor fucker. Turns pretty. Oh no, there's a couple of young bucks are after her now. 2 skinny, cum gutter toting fuckwits with that stupid haircut that everyone seems to have these days with the youngling crowd. Yes, well, there we are. There's my take on the matter. Prove me wrong. I'm sure it's absolutely fantastic.